It's night in the middle of the desert. It's Josh and it's Isaac, and today we're talking about Stranger Things.
We're talking about the spooky things that bump in the night.
Yep. We are unfortunately talking about them in the middle of the desert rather than the middle of the Midwest, which would have been much more apappropriate.
This game just doesn't make everything possible yet.
Yeah, no, Stranger Things...
It is not yet the ultimate video game.
Stranger Things... You misinterpreted that.
We're fine.
Stranger Things relies mainly on moisture.
Moisture?
Clarify what you mean. For its spookiness, and we are now in a very moisture-free environment.
Oh, that's true. All the Stranger Things are very wet.
Did you see in retrospect what you mishapped there?
No, I still don't know where the exit is.
You were facing the exit and you turned away from it.
See, this is what happens when it's dark. You don't see things correctly, and things that are ordinary become unfamiliar and treacherous.
Spooky and dangerous. Yeah. You've biked along this road 100 times, but this time there's a monster. Okay, so here's the deal.
Yeah.
Josh thinks that Stranger Things...
Isaac's going to summarize my thoughts.
Well, I'm going to summarize your thoughts and then request that you tell me what you meant by them.
Okay.
Josh think that Stranger Things got trauma wrong. Particularly the last episode, Stranger Things got trauma wrong. And I want him to explain why he thinks that.
I think the ending... Okay, so spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I think it was the wrong ending for this story.
All right.
I don't want to get into that right at the beginning, though.
Okay. So the other thing that you told me was that even though I think that we both think this is bad, that this show is bad, that's the spoiler for the trucks, is that I'm going to end up saying a lot of nasty things about this show. Josh thinks it would be more instructive to focus on what it almost got right.
Somewhat. Here's my take on this show. I think almost every scene in this show was bad. I think
on this we are right.
I think that the appeal of this show is it leans on a kind of structure which it did not execute correctly, but I think it is an interesting structure.
Okay.
And that structure is the collage.
All right. Explain.
It is entirely made up of references to other properties. Every character is a character from an 80s movie. Every plot device is a plot device from something. Even the shots frequently are references to things. Mm-hmm. The props, like some of it's mythological, and that's why you've got that group of kids playing Dungeons and Dragons, so they can have gorgons and things in the mix, and a slingshot. We're doing David and all that stuff, and the main girl is Ariadne in the Theseus myth. It's stuff, But moreover than that, hey, here's a shot from Donnie Darko.
Right.
Hey, here's a prop that resembles the one that came in handy, and this or that. Here's just, do you remember? Do you know what's going on? Because there's ash hanging in the air. That's right. It's Silent Hill.
Right. I know so much about what's going on.
Yeah.
It's oppressing how much I have going on. It's stifling how much I know what is going on.
And in a way, I think the gesture there was that it wanted to be a retelling of a familiar myth. Right.
Right.
It's... how this is going, and the reason you know how this is going is because you understand and value this system of tropes.
Correct.
There's trouble in the execution.
There is somewhat trouble. There's a little bit of trouble in the execution. I would say that the show does not flow particularly well.
Yes.
I would say that it stutters. I would say that it makes much plain through its references and through its sounds and its actions, and then forces characters to laboriously explain those things that it has already made clear.
I think, crucially for a horror film, or an entry in the horror genre.
Yes, the horror,
the horror genre.
Yes,
is that it doesn't leave itself enough mysteries. Frequently in almost every scene, you know more than what the characters do about what's going on. Mm-hmm. And not just because you're clever enough to pick up on the Silent Hill reference, or the Nightmare on Elm Street reference, or whichever of the hundreds of references there were for you to get.
It's got a little bit of the old Last of Us vibe there, I think, in a lot of its design choices.
Yeah. Wait, does that tie into what makes it predictable, or
no?
You're just picking up on another one.
Another one.
Absolutely, her name is fucking Elle.
Yeah.
But she's also Elfin from Elfenlied.
Yeah.
Right. There's so much. So if this is what's fun for you, is pointing at this thing and saying,
getting your notebook out and check.
And I can see the appeal, right?
I mean, it's a scavenger hunt. That's nice.
Yeah. But, right, what the fuck was I saying?
I believe that you were saying that the audience knows more than the characters in every scene.
Yes.
Not just because they're picking up on the references, because...
The plot tells you everything.
Yeah, everything is known.
Yeah, like, these kids know these things, but this other group of kids doesn't know that, so you get to see them figure that out. And in some cases... like it leads to character drama, and that's fine. You know, the scene is at least serving a purpose. Mm-hmm. But at least half the time, the scene is just focused on, like, here's this thing you already know. Let me construct a metaphor that you already know, because inside of this metaphor is a reference to an 80s movie. You know, like, it's badly paced is the simple way to put all that.
Cool.
And that's some of the best scenes in the show are the ones where you learn something at the very same time the character does. And that's all it takes, you know? Like, one of my favorite scenes, you didn't see it. Isaac watched the first two, got bored, and then I told him to watch the last episode for the sake of this tricks. And he, you know, he missed nothing, in my opinion.
It was striking how, like, I did not have to ask any questions of Josh or really do anything to understand everything that was happening in the last episode besides why there was a kiddie pool in the gym. Josh had to tell me why there was a kiddie pool in the gym.
And the kiddie pool...
Which turns out to be a reference to Minority Report.
Yeah, you're right, yeah. But you know, and the kiddie pool in the gym is one of the better scenes. But here's another one of the better scenes that you missed. The detective character. There's a fun bit in the middle of this show where the detective character suddenly believes the crazy lady. Well, not suddenly. He believes the crazy lady gradually, and then suddenly he's in a spy plot.
Right.
And I like spy plots, and I immediately recognized this character. He's like remarkably similar to the cop from the first season of The Expanse, like right down to puking on screen and not saving the girl at the end.
Right.
But like there's a scene where he like breaks into the morgue to investigate the kid's body, because he now has reason to believe that this body that looks precisely like the kid that died is somehow not the kid.
Yeah, no.
And the nature of how that
she recapped that plot beat in the last episode.
So I remember she mentioned it, but did she mention like she did not mention the nature of this thing.
No, what was this thing?
At this point in the plot, there were vibes of an evil corporation, but you had no reason to suspect that it was the evil corporation rather than the monster that created the fake dead kid, right?
Right.
So this right here is a genuine mystery. And he there's a scene where he punches a state trooper and busts into the morgue and gets the body out and like thrusts a knife into its chest, and like before you know exactly what's happening, you get a shot of the knife going into the chest, and you like the way it responds to the knife is visual information. You know, we've got visual storytelling here.
Right. And
then like in another shot, after you see his grossed out reaction, you see that stuffing comes out of the kid. It's a expertly produced, but by human hands, like fake dead kid.
Right.
And that you know, great, good. Okay. There are good moments in this fucking thing, but there are all too few.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about what story that everybody knows is being told here.
Sure.
Right. So this little town, this little American Midwestern town.
Yeah.
Something is wrong.
Yeah.
Now there is the something that is wrong is encoded in the unraveling of the social fabric, right, that we see in the first episode. There is this dude is having hot hands for this teenage lady, which is enough to summon the devil in most horror movies. There's a divorce mom who's neglecting her kids.
Yeah.
This dude is divorced also, unhappy because his kid died. There's problems, and the kids are getting bullied at school. There's problems. There's a darkness. There's a darkness that haunts this town.
Indeed.
And this darkness, it turns out, is
it's a little girl's trauma.
It's a little girl's trauma. Then there's the evil corporation also. Is it a corporation or is it the government? Do we ever find out whether it's the corporation or the government?
Thankfully, I believe they don't specify whether that corporation is a front for the government.
It's people in suits, regardless. It's people in suits with
it's big science
in police uniforms. Yes, exactly. Science. The other problem is that science is messing with things that we do not what of, and we play God. Mm-hmm. That's the only time I will ever reference anything that Aaron Diaz did approvingly. But science has gone too far, and the bad companies put chemicals in the creek, and the kids are getting sick.
Sure, close enough, you know.
So
whatever.
We got a bunch of things that are wrong, and then that is being literalized in the form of a shadow dimension.
Yeah,
and a monster. So here's the thing, right?
Yeah. What's the thing?
This is all exactly the same thing as what happens in Crow Killers.
Yeah.
Like to a T.
Right.
And Crow Killers is also like sort of a melange of cultural references to other stuff.
Sure.
I think in talking about the ways in which this differs from Crow Killers, we can get at how bad this thing is.
Sure.
Right? So, here's the deal about the ending of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
It tried to avoid what it had set up.
I agree.
Which is the heterosexual pairing of every single character with every single other character in order to fix the malaise, knit up the social fabric, and make a stable environment for everybody to enjoy.
Yeah, you know one thing...
It bailed on that at the last second, but it was absolutely all present, right?
Yeah. And the way...
It didn't even have the courage of its convictions to carry through the thing that it was obviously doing.
Right, and, like, this is a problem. This is a real problem. I think for reasons other than that. Like, that's definitely one thing that makes the ending clumsy. But, like, I believe that killing 11 was the wrong ending for this story. Do you agree with that? It's a... Ultimately, when you have these kids being the heart of the show, and they believe in all this Dungeons and Dragons shit, they're the Campbellian presence. They're the ones who think that good is gonna win.
Yeah,
and the show at no point does anything to subvert that expectation. It doesn't really give itself license to earn an absurdist ending,
right?
And I think Elle dying could work in that kind of a light, but. When Elle is the originator of the trauma dimension...
Let's just take a look at the very large array.
I love it. We're looking for aliens over there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What the fuck did I just say?
When it didn't earn itself the sort of bleak, absurdist, nihilist ending, where 11 dying could have made
It's because
sense.
11... The shadow dimension is 11's trauma. The monster is 11's trauma.
Right.
That's what the symbol language is telling you all throughout this thing. And so what that ending adds up to, when you try to read what the show is saying about how to deal with drama, it's that you need to kill it. You need to kill it for the benefit of the people around you.
Exactly.
And you need to do it even if it comes at the cost of oblivion.
Right. Because your existence is inconvenient. Once again, it's like the social fabric.
Right.
Right? Everybody is like normal, and then there's this weirdo.
Yeah.
And, the weirdo is evidence of our crimes. She's evidence of the fact that there is something missing, that that there's something weird going on in the basement in Omelas.
Right.
So the solution posited here is to dispose of the evidence, and that's also the solution that is posited by the cop.
Yeah.
And the solution that is posited by his interactions with the shady corporation.
Right. And in some way the cop scene works because at least you think he's like making the compromise that he as the corrupted adult believes is necessary.
Right.
But you can't actually kill 11. I believe this to be demonstrative of something I see in video game storytelling a lot. And other just hack movie storytelling.
Do tell.
Which is that you can't just put a sad ending on it because it tests better, or like
because it gives you a heft of artism,
right.
It makes you feel like you might be serious, because the actual ending, what the actual ending is the hackiest horror ending imaginable. It's like, oh, everything is okay except right,
they put in 2 everything's not okays instead of 1. And, it's stupid, because, it felt like... And, fine, someone's going to write in the comments, but Waffles in the box at the end, Elle will survive and be in Season 2. Yeah, fine, she will, but you're still making the wrong story decision for the sake of a sequel hook. That's not what you call elegance in storytelling.
Right.
And, I don't know. It's a shame, because, in a way, I was on this show's side.
See, I wasn't from the very, very beginning.
I'm with you. I can see why. It made a very poor impression with the first 2 episodes, and it continued to be very faulty. But I don't want to just sit here and be cynical about this show.
Alright.
I think it's a more successful episode of Trucks if we talk somewhat about the parts of it that almost worked. And I like this collage idea. It's making your comparison to Crow Killers is making me want to read Crow Killers, because I'd like to see something that does this like correctly.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things about Crow Killers that about the way the Crow Killers approaches this same sort of idea that are, instructive to me. It's
Sure.
like the darkness exists. The darkness has always existed. The darkness will exist. The evil corporation, which in the Crow Killers universe is essentially a backwoods cult, didn't call it into existence. Mm-hmm. They just found it.
Right. I think that,
and they want to look at it, which is right.
It's very strikingly similar, and it reminded me of Inside a lot as well too. That was like a point of comparison for me, because I was like, Inside was playing in a very similar trope space, but in Inside I was constantly asking questions.
Yeah, and it has the pack of kids that are like invested in maybe solving the problem.
Sure.
And like teenagers as well who might be invested in solving the problem, and like people who have been to the other side and come back and are like psychic and weird. The difference is that there is no
intrigue, for one.
I mean, there's no intrigue. Like it's understood that the people in power are kind of in the pocket of the cult, but there's no idea that anything that like the fact that shit is fucked up is taken for granted.
Sure.
Right? The fact that
it reduces any sense of like
the fact that like trauma exists is acknowledged.
Sure.
The main characters of the show are becoming less and less functional because they've experienced bad things.
Yeah.
They aren't just back to like doing D&D as if that didn't remind them of things that were bad.
Right. And the girl doesn't like end up getting with the toxic masculinity character.
That he had a redemption moment where he saved the girl. That was his redeeming moment. He saved the girl. And can I just say that was so poor.
That scene almost was good. Like one of my favorite things in that entire show is the moment where she pulls the gun on him. Like the context for this is great. In the beginning of the show, like she sleeps with this guy, and it's a mistake, but it's not something she necessarily needs to care about. But regardless, this guy continues to make her life difficult because of what happened.
Right.
Her entanglement with this guy is proving toxic because he's a bad dude. Mm-hmm. So meanwhile, she has the most fucked up 3 days of her life, right? She discovers that there's a monster. She learns how to fire a gun. She gets involved with the weirdo, and they buy a bear house. They buy a bear house.
They buy a little bear house.
they buy bear traps and gasoline, and they rig their fucking house as a trap with Christmas lights and all this bullshit, so they can trap this thing. Uh-huh. And then like the other guy who's been in this other teen movie all along shows up and he tries to make the situation all about him. He not only wants to know what's going on, but he wants to be understood. He needs her to understand that he's not a bad guy. He's
and he manages to demonstrate that by selflessly beating up a monster with a bat with a nail in it.
Before that, that I know that was changed. I know that the original plan for that character was not that he got back with that girl, but that they changed their mind when the actor proved so likable. That has been stated. But
oh my God.
The scene as it was intended, I am imagining, was that he would fuck off. And if it's that scene, it's a good one, because what happens is he's there asking, he's putting himself and everybody else in danger by making this whole situation about his feelings. Mm-hmm. And what the girl does, who has had this 3 days of character growth, is pull a gun on him and tell him to fuck off. And if that is the end of their arc, it's so good.
Well, that would be what you would expect to happen.
Yes.
Right? And it's I don't even think that would have been better. Like I said, the show doesn't deliver on these incredibly bland tropes that it dredges up. And so the ending is at the very least slightly unpredictable, because instead of hitting the Harry Potter epilogue that you're expecting out of it,
is that the Harry Potter epilogue?
The Harry Potter epilogue is where everybody ends up happily coupled up.
Oh, right.
Instead of hitting that, it kind of just dissolves.
Yeah.
It's actually nobody was actually saved, but everybody's still much happier than they were.
Sure.
But there's still maybe a problem. So season 2,
Sure.
Maybe at the end of season 2, everybody will end up coupled up with the right couple. Maybe they're just kicking that football down the line, and maybe that's what'll really do it. I'm not convinced.
It's just...
You know what Crow Killers would have done?
Yeah.
Crow Killers would have made the girl's friend in the weird shirt, dress, blouse thing the main character. They would have recognized that she...
You mean Barbara?
Barbara, yeah.
Oh god, Barbara is such a fucking...
Crow Killers would have made
Barbara
the main character.
Barbara's kind of a phenomenon?
Yeah, well, as well she should be.
Right.
And this is the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, the problem is that your tiny little town is toxic. You know, its relationship with authority is toxic. Its relationship with relationships is toxic. There is power that is allowed to go unchecked, either in the form of, you know, the government or blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
So, and that toxicity is physically manifesting itself. So who's the one who manages to get out of the little town?
Yeah, the last...
It's the uncool weirdo in the high school who ends up...
I mean, this is you asking it to be more trope-ish. Maybe you're just asking it to have greater commitment to the tropes it's playing with?
No, because that's the... I'm asking it to be... I'm asking it for truth.
I see.
And I'm not saying that it's like...
Because, I mean, if Barbara survives, that's classic last girl shit. That's the non-sexual teen is the one who survives. Right.
But it's not her survival that I'm asking for. It's her winning.
Yeah.
It's her winning that I'm asking for.
And
it's some acknowledgement that this...
I mean, that's what it is when the last girl chainsaws the Texas Chainsaw Massacre man, like...
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre man. So yeah, maybe I'm asking it to be if it's going to be a pastiche, to be a more coherent pastiche, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And to update and to maybe, you know, not have everything be quite so heterosexual and white and Spielberg-y.
And, you know, I think, like, part of what you're saying is maybe the tropes, or at least what you're ending up saying, I'm going to put words in your mouth, is that the tropes are there for a reason. There's a reason why it's morally incoherent when the girl gets back with the guy in that one scene.
Yeah, or when they kill that girl off and nobody seems to care, or when they...
I mean, that's just what happens when you have a character who's there for one purpose, and that purpose is to serve the plot.
Yeah, or
we need someone else to die, so this girl has a reason to care about the whole...
Or the kids creepily, you know... or the kids creepily don't seem to acknowledge that anything bad ever happened, or that, you know, like... It's so weird, just the way that it puts it down and just sort of is like, we are not going to be, you know, this is how we're choosing to update it. We're not choosing to update any of the characters because the characters all come out of central casting. We're not choosing to update any of the scenarios because the scenarios all come out of central casting. We're not choosing to add anything new of our own in terms of the visual vocabulary or the plot, because all of that is taken from other things. What we're choosing to update is the resolution, and we're choosing not to have one.
Right. We're choosing to make it a little bit more of a TV show. And isn't that great?
We've avoided the what might be considered corny, i.e. successful, i.e. coherent. And we're just kind of letting it go.
I don't know why I keep looking for goodness on TV, because the very structure of TV is something you have to work against if you want to tell a good story.
And these guys had a lot going in their corner. They had a finite number of episodes, 8, which is a good number of episodes to have.
They wasted 3 of them. It's insane, the pacing of this
God, thing. No, it reminds me of Paranoia Agent, which is, you know, Satoshi Kon's TV show as opposed to Satoshi Kon's movies. Paranoia Agent, which was 12 episodes long, still managed to have 2 complete filler episodes.
Fuck. And you love Utena, right? Which is.
I mean, at least they had sound economic reasons to be full of filler.
I mean, those sound economic reasons should have led them to make about 10 episodes rather than.
The sound economic reason in this case was they needed 4 seasons.
Oh, well, the horror! Just make one really good one.
You would think so. Well,
I guess they don't have all that money at once.
That's what Monica did.
Yeah.
I just wish it should have been Utena, but I digress. Let's talk about trauma a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, another thing that the single worst thing that this show does is that it shows the detective dude having all of those moments where he's remembering his daughter dying during bits in the thing which were slightly analogous. As far as I can tell, the reason why they're shown him is that to make absolutely fucking certain that we are aware that he is having a redemption moment.
Right.
That he is revisiting that thing from his trauma, right?
Yeah.
That's his trauma.
Yeah.
He's revisiting that thing from his past that happened that was bad. And he's going, well, not this time.
Yeah.
I learned from the experience of my daughter dying that I should probably save this child.
Yeah.
Right? That's what's motivating me is I didn't know kids were bad or kids dying was bad until my kid died, but I used that extra special knowledge to know that maybe I should save this kid's life.
It's pointless.
Not another dead kid because that happened to me. So here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
This I talked on Tumblr a little while ago about My Dead Wife is a 9/11 metaphor movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is a move straight out of that kind of movie. Like if you think about Inception or you think about like 9 billion other things. Dead wife, dead daughter.
Yeah.
Some girl died and it made a man sad and cut him off from his like growth, his development, and through living women, i.e. this lady who everything was moving up to him being the own dad, and they just shied away from it because they realized how shit that was.
Right. I mean, that's better though.
It would have been better than what they did. That's the point. It would have been better than what they did. They made this bed. They could have fucking lied in it, right? So he is.
Is it they could have lay in it?
They could have reclined upon this mattress that they stuffed with the feathers of terrible geese.
Yeah. They burned the mattress.
They pissed on it and then they burned it. So
they gave you half the mattress and said, "Get ready for the next half of the mattress."
Here's the fun, clever point that I was trying to make.
Yeah.
You know what movie does trauma right?
What?
Mad Max does trauma right.
Oh, dude, it's so true.
Mad Max does trauma right. The thing that happens with Mad Max's dead family PTSD in the most recent Mad Max movie
is that it's backgrounded for fucking starters.
For one thing, it's backgrounded. For a second thing, when he has a flashback because he is triggered by the memories of his dead family, he freezes up and fucks up.
Yeah.
Because that's how it works.
Yeah, and 11 meanwhile does all her heroic shit while flashing back to her.
Right. It's
I mean, I know that's a reverse of the intended cause and effect. Like it's supposed to be that doing these things causes her to be triggered. But even that is that's saying that you should do the stuff that triggers you because it'll unlock your inner hero.
And Detective Dad, when he's flashing back and having these moments, it just makes him more confident, more steely, and he knows what to do and moves on. And the great thing about this in Mad Max is that it saves his life once. Yeah. one of the times that he is triggered, exactly one time, because that's how it works. Yeah. That's why we have these reactions.
And the other times
is because 99% of the time it won't happen, but the body knows to try to avoid the thing.
Yeah.
And so it saves his life once, but it completely fucks him over all the other times. And that's what trauma is actually like.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is, and this is what I was thinking when you were saying that it got trauma wrong. It's this movie, that moment where it's she's all fucked up and not really okay, except when the scary things are happening, and then she snaps in.
Yeah,
is just utterly false.
It's backwards.
It's just false. The magical trauma victim, she has powers because she got hurt. That's not how it works. Your superpower is that you go catatonic. Your superpower is that you have flashbacks. Your superpower is that you can't go and be around people. It's not that it gives you psychic power. Anyway.
No, it's true. I mean, it's not like you can't tell a story about someone whose trauma somehow gives them superpowers, but you need to be well aware of the fact that you are flying in the face of the not only convention but the expected reactions.
Right. Your superpower, your traumatic superpower is the part where you think your family is the Viet Cong.
Yeah.
That and maybe
the Wonder Twin who turns into a bucket. That's a real thing, and you could do a trauma arc with him if you really wanted to. There you have it. He's waiting for you.
Oh, that was an unexpected gift, Josh. Thank you. But yeah, so that's the basic thing that I feel that it wasn't good.
There's a lot to this show. It's playing in a rich trope system.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't want to be.
It's shoveling it on, and
yeah,
so there's plenty of stuff to latch onto because the sheer density of the fucking
and I don't
mulch.
want to be perceived as saying that you can't do a show which is 80s horror movie pastiche. You can't do a show which is Stephen King, but you can't. It's one of my favorite things in genre fiction is when you have different genres that different characters in the same story belong to, and they kind of clash in interesting and unexpected ways. And I completely fucked up my manual gear shift while I was dealing with saying that. But yeah, like the way they're in different teen movies, the way like the kids are in E.T. and the teens are in Teen Wolf, like that's a fun device. You know, I love it when shit does that. It's just that, you need to have respect for that source material in a way I don't think this show does. I think this show handles it not only shamelessly and with a little bit too much quantity over quality, but just like
without a command over it.
You know, without understanding why those stories meant things to people.
And why they fit together the way they did.
And this gives it a shortcut to feeling effective. You know, that's what's
like,
really
this reminds me of something that made me feel something.
Right, you know, like I care about several of the things that the show is referencing, you know, so my brain was able to do a fun thing where, in a way, it really was Silent Hill, you know, because they were borrowing directly from that visual language.
Yeah.
And, you know, that kind of, I resent being made to care like that. I think that is unearned, and I think this is the problem when Joseph Campbell is taken too literally, right? When you take him to when you hear him say these stories inherently have power because we recognize them, and the best thing you can do as a storyteller is leverage the power in these stories.
Yeah,
like what that leads to is a sandbox where you get sand in your eyes. That's like everybody's throwing this shit around heedlessly, or worse, everyone's following a formula, and in a way this show gets the worst of both worlds out of those two things. Am I making sense?
Yes, I do. I wish that had either been a genuinely faithful homage to the things that it was being an homage to, and had just gone with it, for which would be like, I don't know why somebody did this, but at least I can respect it.
Yeah.
And if it hadn't done that, I wish that it had the
I beat another truck.
Sort of creativity or the audacity or the courage to really dig into this stuff and find out what it could say about what's happening now, as opposed to what like when divorce was scary in the 80s, you know, when like, you know, when kids being out at night alone was starting to be unsafe. How about what we're worried about now?
Right.
You know? So like, yeah, that's basically it. It should have either, you know, revamped it for the 90s, or it should
the 90s. That would have been great.
That's basically what Crow Killers is.
A lot of its references were to 90s properties, strangely, or early 2000s.
I didn't. Can I just say again, although I mentioned this on Tumblr, how like baffling the soundtracking decisions were, and how utterly on the nose, and yet
some of it was like to establish what movie they were from, right? The kids listened to different kinds of music, which helped establish their genre.
Yeah,
but like it was on the nose regardless of that. Like there's an idea there, but it's still a shoddy execution.
I think my absolute favorite thing the show did was that it had the girl listening to Africa by Toto because it was raining outside. That was my favorite one.
And that's during the losing of virginity moment, isn't it? I mean,
no, that's not when she loses virginity. Or maybe it is. I don't know. I don't think that was the one.
I see. Well,
anyway, regardless.
One thing I will say for the show: great title card, good title sequence.
Yeah, I mean, most of the people I know seem to be mostly excited about the font.
Yeah, it's a good font. They picked a good font. It's nice when you see someone pick a good font. It's nice when you see that font handled with a certain a level of gravitas. You just don't see that all the time.
Yeah, I don't care.
It's hard. You don't have to care.
Yeah.
But for those of us who do, it's good.
Indeed. Yeah. Cool.
And
frankly,
good on you for trying to structure a TV show around three parties doing completely different things from one another. I mean, that's ambitious.
That was good.
You failed to pace it out correctly, but you know, good try. I'm not gonna park successfully.
Cool. And nice sort of cryptosporidium enemies.
Sure.
With the sort of the.
If you enjoyed it, I'm glad for you. But also, agree with us because we're right about it.
Yeah, I know we are. I mean, it doesn't give me any pleasure reminding you how terrible everything is. Honest to God, it doesn't. Bye.
Bye-bye.